All right, guys, welcome back, and we have another bout of severe weather coming in. It's the same one we were talking about in the previous forecast videos, and this is going to be for March 25th, and that'll be Monday night into Tuesday morning. This is going to be a mainly overnight event, but as of right now, the Storm Prediction Center has put out a slight risk 2 out of 5 with a 5% tornado risk and a 15% wind risk for portions of that east central Louisiana into west central Mississippi. Clips the southern portion, the southeast portion of Arkansas, and it's surrounded by a fairly large 2% tornado risk that covers everywhere except the northern third of Mississippi. And pretty synoptically perfect setup as far as the upper wind pattern, but there is some question marks with this event as far as can we get enough instability and moisture to really be able to have significant severe weather. So this is the observed data. Okay, you see your red is your temperature and your green is your dew points. And down here in the Gulf, even as far south, you can see not even 60 dew points. We have a little hint of 61 here, and you can see they're coming straight out of the southeast. The winds are southeasterly, being pumped forward into the low-level cyclone that just traversed the Rockies into Oklahoma. You can see nice backed winds, but our moisture is going to it's got a long way to go. If I was to draw a moisture line of our 60 dew points, it's right here, and that's the biggest issue with this event so far, is just the just-in-time type of moisture that we're going to get into the region. Remember, our region's right here. We got to go from 45 dew point to 65 dew points in the matter of basically 24 hours. So it's got a lot of work to do, but we do have a particularly strong low-level cyclone that's forming just east of Oklahoma. I'll show you exactly what that is. Let's go to the Central Plains sector. You can see these tight wind gradient bars, and here's the beginnings of your surface low starting to traverse the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. So you're starting to get strong cyclogenesis as it traverses the Rockies and moves east. There you go. There's your big low-level cyclone that's working its way through, and you can see all these backed winds coming all the way from down here, just funneling around this surface cyclone. So that's going to slowly progress east and then northeast, and it's going to help get our moisture to where it needs to be for this severe weather event tomorrow. So those are the current observations that we're working with. And let's go ahead and get straight into some model data. This is the 12Z HRRR. We are in short range models. We're to the point where we can start comparing and contrasting the short range. This is the 12Z, so 6 a.m. this morning, that was this run. Starting out at the 500 millibar map. And oh boy, is it favorable. So we have this big long wave trough, right? Starts all the way to the northernmost tip, the maximum of the secondary wave over here. You can go all the way to the base of the trough, and it takes up almost 3/4 of the United States. So this is a bona fide long wave trough, really big, slow moving. And you can see a vort maximum as you see this closed contour right where that surface low is start to work its way east in this enhanced belt of flow that's working its way through. But as we go into the evening, you can see right now it's more of a positively tilted shape. As you can see, the bottom of this lobe, this U, is facing to the left. But as we go right into showtime, it goes straight up and down neutrally tilted. And on the east side, you get this strengthening of a vorticity maximum on the east side of this trough. As that surface vorticity and that upper level vorticity increases, you can see that just explosion. We go from 94 knots all the way up to 120 knots overnight. So this is really this is basically perfect synoptic scale forcing. You can see the gradient isotherms just tightening, and you really get this speed maximum that comes through. So in significant height falls as well. If I was to follow one of these contours, I'll just pick this one at random. You can see how it moves off to the east. So heights are going to significantly fall. And I say all that to say basically perfect synoptic forcing for ascent. Forcing will not be an issue. Also, strong diffluence, as you can see up here in central Arkansas. You have winds coming from the southeast or the southwest, north and south like this. And then down here on the bottom side of the warm sector, you have them coming out basically out of the west. So large scale diffluence aloft. So check every box you have of synoptic forcing for ascent. So there will be thunderstorms. Whether now we just got to determine from this point if they're going to be significant severe weather producers, but there will be thunderstorms when you have this type of forcing for ascent. All right, coming down to 700 millibars. All we really do at 700 millibars is verify the upper level forcing we see at 500, and you can see just this broad area of really intense 50 to 60 knot winds, and it just explodes overnight right during peak time. So really strong shortwave trough, just vorticity maximum, just slingshotting this little piece of energy. I can imagine that if we check out the vorticity, you'd see a nice line. And then the low level jet. Okay, and this is the most concerning part of this event. When you get these negatively tilted little shortwave vortexes that eject like this, it really strengthens the low level flow. So you can see already going into the morning, this is almost 10 a.m. You see a really stout low-level jet already in place. I mean, 50 to 55 knots in place, and it only intensifies as we go into the evening. This is 21Z, so it's about 4 p.m., and you got a 60 to 70 knot low-level jet all the way through the portions of North Mississippi. And strengthening even to 80 knots in the northern portion up here. Luckily, we're not going to have any moisture up here for that to be an issue, but that is, I mean, that's a textbook strengthening of the low-level jet, especially as you go into the nocturnal. You get that natural lift of the low-level jet. It usually increases no matter what as the temperature cools during the day, and as the night comes, you get that strengthening of those winds out of the south. But that's just impressive. Perfectly in tandem, as you can see the wave go neutrally tilted here and just slingshot this little piece of energy. So low-level shear, not going to be an issue. But if you want to look for an issue, here it is. This is the main fly in the ointment with this setup. Is we're struggling to get moisture because, like we were looking at the observed data, you see how far south these dew points are and how far they got to recover. Here's your 70s dew points way down here. I mean, off the coast of Cuba. You would want to see these already tucked up to the coast with a big, wide, expansive warm sector if you're looking for severe weather. But it's got a lot of work to do, and this is a strong low-level cyclone, so it's going to do its best. You can see it just funnels those 60s in, and here comes those 70s. But we get a very pinched off small area of those enhanced mid to upper 60s dew points. And it maintains itself as it goes through overnight. That's why we're concerned about an overnight threat. But we don't get as expansive of a warm sector as we would usually like to see. Especially up here, if you remember from your 850 millibar type maps, we would really want to see this much, much wider. But we're only getting, I mean, low 60s to mid 60s dew points up here. So it's going to be a struggle to get any for any cell that's able to manifest. It's going to be hard for it to continue to maintain overnight. As we can see right here would be game time right as 0Z as we go into the overnight. I mean, there's enough of a warm sector for anything that's going to continue to go, because you really only need low 60s dew points. But to get continuous instability, to have continuous threats of round after round of prefrontal discrete supercells, you'd want a much wider warm sector and a much deeper area of moisture. So that's the main fly in the ointment. But there is a but. Coming down to the instability, we'll go to surface-based CAPE. And the way you get instability, right, is it's cold air aloft coupled with warm, moist air at the surface. And we got decently moist air, but not really enough to really make the instability values explode. But we do have cold air aloft, very cold air aloft coming in. So it's compensating a little bit for it. You don't get a lot, right? As we go into tornado time, or the timing of this severe weather event, you get just a broad area of 2 to 300, 400 joules maybe. Really weak instability as we go throughout the night. But here's the thing about instability. If storms are able to fire and be surface-based, and the orientation is favorable, all you need is for those storms to form. And as long as it has at least 60s dew points to be able to track north and east, it'll be able to go. I'm hearing a lot of things about instability, curbing some overnight threat. Lower instability values will curb storms from being able to form, but anything that's already forming or is synoptically forced regardless of, extreme instability, it'll be able to go. So for me, it's not a valid reason to discount this system as a whole because of the limited instability values. We get these all the time, every year. We call it high shear, low cape. And when you have favorable lift and wind profiles, and if they're favorably oriented to where you're going to get discrete storms, you have to treat it with respect, because with the wind profiles, with that 60 to 80 knot low level jet coming in, it's not going to take long. If you can get a storm to go up, latch on, and sustain, it'll be able to go, right? We saw it how many times with last year with Rolling Fork and Amory. The thing is, with Rolling Fork, it was able to continuously produce despite low 60s. It was like 60 to 62 up here in Amory and Smithville. I mean, it was able to produce strong tornadoes even that far northeast because it was already latched on to the environment, and it was able just to continue maintain its direction, and the low level shear was off the charts. This isn't unheard of, you know what I mean? So I say all that to say, you got to treat it with respect. You got to treat days like today, even though they're low forecasted, even though it's a 5% tornado risk, you don't get those big pretty colors on the model. You need to be prepared just in case. Because if you're scrambling to get prepared at the last second, as soon as you get the tornado warning, if you don't know what you do, you got to make a plan. You got to get all the kids' stuff. You got to get them in the car. You're late, and you don't want to be late with situations like this. So we're trying to take focus away from the colors on the Storm Prediction Center and really just show you what's the worst thing that can happen and then what's the likely scenario. Now, the likely scenario, as of right now, is we get storms to fire along the cold front. May or may not remain discrete. I'll show you the bulk shear vector so we can kind of forecast storm mode here. But if they don't remain discrete, you're worried about embedded tornadoes in a line overnight, considering the extreme low-level shear factors, right? Still tornadoes, but not your long track, significantly damaging type. Now, if the line devolves, right, which we'll go into the convective allowing portions of these models here shortly, and we'll compare and contrast. But if the line devolves and we're able to get a couple of discrete supercells, especially down here in the greater moisture and instability, that's worst case scenario, because there's no reason why they won't be able to go for a while. So right here, we have our initiating boundary right here. So fairly north to south oriented cold front or frontal boundary, and we have wind barbs right here that's basically perfectly perpendicular to the initiating boundary. So that means any storm that fires across is going to move directly off the boundary, and it's not going to have any problem at all staying away from other updrafts. So it's going to be able to sustain itself and be discrete if it's able to mature and latch on to the environment. But it's got to be able to strengthen and rise up to be able to latch on to this bulk shear. This is 6 kilometers up in the atmosphere, and this is the mean wind at 6 kilometers. But it's got to mature enough It needs enough time to mature, get as tall, get as latched on, and then it's got to be able to turn right into these bulk shear vectors, and it's going to be able to sustain itself. So the main worry is that we don't have enough instability to be able to sustain itself long enough for it to latch on. All right, let's go with the energy helicity index. And this basically shows you the most favorable areas for significant severe weather producers where it would be. So we get a little bit of a nose of it here on the Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas border, and it really explodes down here further south as you hit that greater instability and moisture. So right here in the southwestern tip of Mississippi is where I would be most concerned for any significant severe weather if it was to come to fruition. Let's go ahead and go to reflectivity. So here we are at the composite reflectivity, and we're going to go over what the possibilities are. Okay, this is with the HRRR. Right here at about 1 p.m. is when we're starting, and you can see just that north-south oriented line. That's really just evolution of the convection the night before moving eastward, right? So as we go, and this is at 20Z 4 p.m., you see these banding, right? And we've gone over this in another video. Here's your banding that comes from that large scale forcing. That diffluence aloft is really promoting open warm sector convection to start to bubble. And you can see your line start to bow, but it kind of devolves itself right through here, right? And if you could draw the cold front, it would be somewhat leaning like this. Sort of a bowing segment up here that kind of tails off right here. And in that, you get a leading prefrontal confluence band that really leads, and you're able to get a supercell that's able to latch on right at the southern edge of this and right on the leading edge of the confluence band. And it's able to move. And now eventually it does end up merging with the cold front because it wasn't able to mature long enough to latch on and really turn right into the environment. But if something like that were, right, if you were able to get one of these to mature enough, latch on, and then you have a hard right mover, that would be the scenario that we're worried about, especially in that region, because it's been a constant trend along models where you really see this line tailor off. You get that leading prefrontal confluence, you can get that northern edge just really be able to run for a little bit. Now, the HRRR isn't showing this as well. It's showing it's all converged. It's really struggling because we don't have a lot of instability for prefrontal confluence, and we just get that strong squall line, right? But that would be the worst case scenario if this line were to devolve and you get that leading edge of the prefrontal confluence able to latch on, mature, and turn right and be able to sustain itself in that low-level shear for any period of time. That's because it's not going to take long. Once the storms are mature, there's enough low-level shear for these to go very quickly and become tornadic, possibly even significantly tornadic. So let's... I'll show you the NAM run from previous models, or this is the exact previous. So this was the model run last night, what it was showing, and that really got my alarm bells, ringing in my head. Was this right here, this solution. So right as you go into over 9, you can see the line taper off here, and you get this leading area of prefrontal confluence. It's got forever to be able to try to mature and evolve, and it eventually does. Right here, you can still see this is tapered off right here. You get that prefrontal confluence that's able to run and run. Now, if eventually it does end up merging with the cold front, but something like that, especially if you get slightly higher forecasted instability, a little bit better lapse rates, you get a little bit of an elevated mix layer pumping in because of the axis of the trough. You get a little dry air aloft that's really able to spread apart those temperature and dew point spreads and really increasing in fat and instability, that would be a bad scenario. And this orientation of the line just worries me. Let's see. As I said, I don't pull punches. I'm telling you exactly how it is. This isn't meant to scare anybody. This is what we go through in our head before we go on storm chases. We're breaking down what are the high end scenarios, what are the low end scenarios, and then what is currently forecasted. Low end scenario is you just get that squall line that comes through, it instantly merges, there's little to no instability for storms to mature, and you just get those spin up tornadoes overnight along the cold front. Sort of like what happened last Wednesday. That's the low end. So let's go. I wanted to show you the FV3 because it really maintains the separation of the squall line and then the prefrontal confluence band forever, right? You can see them start all the way down here, mature into right movers, and then just continue. So that is something, that's the situation that could possibly occur on the high end. Now, I will say the FV3 and the RRFS are notorious for being supercell printers, right? They usually tend to show a supercell solution, but when in conjunction with the other models, it's more of the orientation than the actual cells that I'm looking at, right? I'm looking more so, I'm not really looking for the updraft helicity tracks or the, I'm not necessarily looking for like those long striped beams where an updraft is. I'm looking for the evolution of the line and how this thing evolves. And you kind of get some of that on here on the RRFS too. Where the line devolves up here in the northern mode, you can get that southernmost prefrontal confluence band take over and dominate as it moves northeast before it eventually does merge. But as you can see, you can tell with the updraft helicity tracks that are shown that they will be able to spin. As we can take a look at the warm sector as it evolves overnight. We'll take a quick look at the dew points on this model, just to kind of give you an idea how it's expected to forecast it to evolve. So here we go. We got this big stripe all the way up to Little Rock of 60s dew points. And then it just continues to push eastward, right? It eventually pinches off on the northern edge. You get kind of that zipper effect of the moisture. But it does maintain at least 60s all the way through Mississippi. And as long as you have a mature squall line or supercell, it's going to continue to be surface-based, right? So even though this instability is getting choked off, we've seen it time and time again where we get those overnight spin-up tornadoes along the squall line, or supercells are able to continue despite limited instability and moisture because their low-level mesocyclones are just so strong they're able to continue on forever as long as there's at least some resemblance of moisture. All right. So, say all that to say this. You need to be weather aware. You don't need to be caught off guard by this system. There's still a lot of question marks. It would not surprise me at all if it's upgraded to a 10 hatch tonight or even in the next update, just given how strong the environment is, right? It's got a strong tornado type of environment. It's at this point, it's just depending, are we going to see that line evolve? Are we going to be able to get discrete supercells that's going to be able to take advantage of it? If that were to be the scenario, then we would be talking about a much more significant impact type of event. But as of right now, the way it's forecasted, there's not much confidence in that line devolving. It's forecasted to really stay one consecutive line. It's going to be hard for prefrontal confluence bands to get going because of the meager instability. So right now, at this moment, hazards are looking to be spin-up tornadoes along the line and damaging wind along those Boeing segments as that squall line makes its way through the state late. If I was to give you a time frame, it would probably be, you would want to be on the lookout from about 3 p.m. tomorrow on Monday all the way through about 3 a.m. 12-hour period. You need to be weather aware. You need to have your weather radios on. You need to make sure the apps on your phone works. Test the warnings. Make sure you got a way to get them. Make sure they're loud when you go to sleep. Make sure you know whether you watch us, Storm Chasers, or you watch the local news at WTVA or whatever local Delta news channel there is. Make sure you got a way to be there and get there. Make sure you got a way, if the power goes out, that you got a way to get warnings, right? Don't just focus on the TV. You need to have multiple ways, because if a tree falls down in your local neighborhood and you ain't got power and you only use the TV, you're not going to have a way to get the warnings. So this is how you prepare. Make sure if you got your tornado safe place in the hallway, make sure you clear out the pictures. Make sure nothing can fall on you. If you've got a helmet, make sure you got helmets there. The number one cause of fatalities in significant tornado type situations is blunt force trauma to the head. If you can protect your head, you give yourself a much better chance. If you're in a mobile home, if you live in mobile homes, don't be there. If all possible, go stay with a friend, take a night out to go eat, monitor the weather situation, make sure you know where your local shelters are if you can't make it to town, and you just need to have a way, know what you're going to do if that were to be the case. It's March. It's the 1-year anniversary of Rolling Fork today as I'm making this video, and we need to take lessons from that situation and apply it going forward. So it's been great talking to you guys. I will be chasing. My plan is to set up somewhere Vicksburg, Jackson vicinity. If I got to cross the river, I will, but I'll be there just in case the worst case scenario does unfold and we need live eyes on the ground and help with damage. So I will be down there. Keep an eye on the channel. We'll probably be keeping we'll post consistent updates as we get them from the National Weather Service and from model data. Don't know if I'll make a video tomorrow morning. If I do, it'll be a lot less quality than of this. Did they just update it right in front of me? No. Okay. But yeah, we'll go ahead and leave it off there. I appreciate y'all taking the time to watch, and y'all stay safe. If y'all need anything, my messages are always open. Shoot me a direct message, shoot me a comment under this video. I'll be more than happy to answer if you have questions. So yeah, y'all stay weather aware and be safe. Hey guys, sorry about the sound in this portion of the video, but I had to go back and add this portion at the end because as I was editing the video, they went ahead and upgraded to a 10% hatched risk driven by tornadoes. As you can see there, the 10%. But this is a voiceover because for some reason the audio voided. The audio was very glitched out on the thing. But doing a voiceover, they went ahead and increased the severe chance of damaging winds up to 30%. That was that little red contour. I'm playing catch up here, but yeah, they have upgraded to a 3 out of 5 enhanced risk for a 10% chance of a significant tornado within 25 miles of a given point, right there near the Jackson, the northeast portions of Louisiana and the western portions of Mississippi near the Jackson and the Highway 61 corridor. So that's where I'm going to be targeting. I just wanted to throw this in there as a little bit of an update, just so we're all on the same page going into the evening and overnight hours. So once again, sorry for the bad audio. I'm sorry that this is a voiceover and not matched up exactly, but I wanted to go ahead and include this to make sure that y'all are weather aware. So thank you guys for watching, and y'all stay safe going into tomorrow. Keep checking back in for updates.